and welcome to Life Daily. I'm your host, Alicia Van Delft, and today we are going to be talking about the outward flow of migrant students from China to go study in overseas universities. We'll have students from China talking with us today, as well as experts and government officials. But first, to better understand this issue of why Chinese students are leaving, we need to talk about the forces that are pushing and pulling them out. We will have our expert, Washinkar, talking to us today.
Thank you. The recent trend of Chinese student migration can be explained using the push-pull model. It argues that the combination of push factors in students' home country and also the pull factors in the receiving country actually shapes individual students' interest to study abroad and also their choice of destination. And the push factors actually inspires students' interest to for a foreign education, but not their choice of destination. But the pull factors actually suggest the destination country and also their educational institution.
Oh, okay. And what exactly are these push factors?
For the case of Chinese students, the push factors include the perception of non-local studying being more prestigious and also the difficulties of getting into local universities. Furthermore, the recent economic boom in China also increased the numbers of wealthy families, and they could now easily afford their child education fee overseas.
Oh, okay.
And also, the China One Child policy that was introduced in 1979 further contributed to this emigration trend because the resources now could more concentrate on one child instead of many. And with financial problem being a less significant issue, the Chinese students now have more choices to choose from for their educational overseas. On the other hand, the pull factors such as the presence of higher quality academic staff overseas, educational costs and funding provided by the receiving countries, and also the availability of specialism that were not offered in China also attract students to go overseas.
I see. Thanks, Dr. Washinkar, for shedding some light on this.
Thank you.
We'll now show you a short interview of a Chinese migrant student. We will now talk to a Chinese student who will explain to us why she decided to migrate overseas for her university education. What's your name, miss?
My name is Marco.
And Marco, why did you decide to go overseas for your university?
Because I'm the only child, so my parents invest a lot in my education to ensure that I get the best quality education. And actually, it's very difficult to find jobs in China if you do not have a degree from the top Chinese universities. And actually, nowadays, companies don't just look for degrees, they are looking for students with masters and PhD. So I believe that an English education is actually very important because now companies are looking for students who have proficiency in Chinese and English. So I believe that having an English education will increase my employability as compared to my peers in China. And I also wanted to experience different cultures abroad while I'm still young.
Thanks, Wendy. We'll now go for a short commercial.
Do you really want your life looking like this? Cleaning up after others, flipping burgers for a living, unclogging toilets, living in this black and white world? Well, luckily, there's a way you can change all that. With DeVry University, you'll learn the necessary skills and knowledge to be the best, most educated, overqualified, mess cleaning, burger flipping, toilet unclogging scholar with a degree. And you'll be in color. At DeVry University, we want you.
We want you!
We want you.
We want you
To pay us.
You will not regret it.
If only I could go back.
Hands down the best decision my parents ever forced me to make.
Everyone knows that the reason you go to college is for money. College means a degree. A degree means a job. And a job means money. And with DeVry, we can guarantee that we might get you to the degree part if you put in the work. Because really, you're doing all the work, not us.
I've never been so stressed out in my life. I never thought I'd ever wish to be back in high school again.
Yeah, maybe books are about $1,000 a year. Dorming and meal plans, add another 8. Tuition? 45. But the experiences, quality education, and friends you're going to be making along the way, priceless. So choose DeVry University, because really, in our society, DeVry University, because everyone else is doing it.
Good morning and welcome to Life Daily. I'm your host, Alicia Van Delft, and today we are going to be talking about the outward flow of migrant students from China to go study in overseas universities. Now we'll be talking with Dr. Bo Langjai. Dr. Bo is an expert in the implications of student emigrations from China. Dr. Bo, do you think that this issue is cause for concern?
I would think of it as a potential brain drain from the country when the academic migrants leave the country and do not return. We have an outgoing population of potential talent for the country. So for instance, it has been reported that since the end of, no, at the end of the year 2012, it's been reported that there's a deficit of 1,090,000 students since 1970s due to Chinese student immigration. So this has prompted the state to implement a series of responses very early on, which intensified in 1990s as student immigration intensified due to more students becoming self-financing. So this causes a vicious cycle too, and drives the education fever in the country when people see studying abroad as an indicator for future success.
Ah, I see. Dr. Bo, do you see this as something that China couldn't recover from?
Not really. While such concerns are justified, it depends on how the state manages them, and if they do it well, they can leverage on this as an opportunity instead of seeing this as in a negative light.
Ah, I see. Thank you, Dr. Bo. We will now show you a short interview of a parent discussing her experience with her daughter studying overseas. Hi, Auntie. Can you explain to me why you encouraged your daughter to study overseas?
Because I have only one daughter, so I want her to get the best education possible. I scream and save for many years so that I can afford for education overseas. And the economy is too competitive now, and if you don't know English, you will lose out. And all my neighbors are comparing their children, like which university they go to and what jobs they are working as. So one of the neighbor's son, he studied in the US, and then now he's working as a boss in a big multinational company. But then the elders will miss the children because they only get to come back once a year during Chinese New Year.
Yes, of course. So will you encourage your daughter to come back to China when she graduates and work there?
I heard of a few stories where the children, after they go overseas to study, and then they decide to work there and get married and settle down there. But I hope my daughter doesn't do that because I want her to remember her roots and come back to China to work and settle down here after she graduates.
Thank you. I would like to introduce the Chinese government official, Dan Man. Dan Man, could you explain to us just how big this trend is?
According to statistics, there have been 3 million of Chinese students that went abroad to study, but only 1 million of them come back. So this group of students, they actually have much potential to contribute to the national development of China because they are the top students and they have academic excellence.
And how does this trend affect China's economy?
Well, losing them certainly will weaken the core of innovation and technology of China, which technology and innovation is like the key factor of China's success. And China is now experiencing, as you know, a low fertility and because of the one-child policy and aging population. So this will actually cause the losing workforce, the shrinking workforce in the long run.
Okay, and does it affect China in any other ways?
Well, socially, because most of the kids that goes out are an only child, that they went abroad, so their parents are left behind. So actually this group of parents actually is increasing in numbers, and actually they are demanding for emotional support and better pension schemes. So it could be add burdens to China's resources in the future.
I see. Okay, thank you. Good morning and welcome to Life Daily. I'm your host, Alicia Van Delft, and today we are going to be talking about the outward flow of migrant students from China to go study in overseas universities. And how effective has China seen these policies being? For instance, have you seen an increase in students since they've been implemented?
Well, surely there's an increase. According to our data, in 2007, there are only 60,000 of Chinese students come back. However, in recent years, in 2012, what we recorded is there's almost 300,000 of students come back. So you see there's an exponentially increase in the number of students come back. Yeah, however, we have to admit that there's limitations of our effectiveness, as the most resistant force that comes from is that the Chinese student funds are very hard to fit in the local culture, with the Chinese culture in the workplace. And so we have to say that it's, come back to China or not, it still remains as a personal choice. So
we now have Dr. Bo back to explain to us some of the policies that China has implemented to help mitigate this immigration flow.
Okay, so many of China's current policies are aimed to attract students to return back to the country because the state sees them as desirable migrants. So the state policies are revolving around like 12 Chinese words, which basically means encouraging students to study abroad and encouraging them to return back to their country while meanwhile they will facilitate the migratory flows. On one hand, some of their policies provide monetary incentives to entice overseas students to return. However, on the other hand, I think some of it is like done intentionally so that is to allow the migrants to self-select themselves. After all, China initiated student immigration as a means for knowledge transfer from other countries back to China.
Dr. Bo, how successful do you think that these schemes are? Wouldn't some students that are living abroad have benefits there that they wouldn't receive in China?
Yes, monetary incentives cannot be a deciding factor as to whether these students who are studying abroad will return. Because after all, if they are performing well, there are plenty of opportunities abroad. So of course, some will return. So statistics have shown that the number of return migrants is actually increasing, although we should read those statistics with caution. Because the proportion of migrants that are returning is actually not that much if you compare to those who migrated initially in the first place. So I think that the state is increasingly more accepting of the fact that not everybody will want to return to their country. So they are promoting the idea that one doesn't have to physically return as long as one contributes to their country through other means such as short-term visits. So there's more emphasis on the flows of ideas now rather than them physically coming back, returning to China.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Doctor. For our final interview, we'll be again talking to the student.
Margaret, do you think when you graduate that you'll return to China to find work? I will most likely work here for a few years to gain some working experience, and I will consider going back to China after that because China has had high economic growth and I believe that this will continue to improve. And also the government has been giving very attractive incentives, but ultimately the decision will be because of my family, because they are the one who gave me the money and opportunity to study abroad, so I want to be able to look after them in the future. So I need to rush off because I need to maintain my kids.
Okay, bye. Thank you for the interview, Margaret.
I hope Daily Life has provided an overview of this important trend. To recap what we've discussed, we talked about the push and pull factors causing students to emigrate from China, the implications this trend has had on China, and the response that China has taken to this trend. That's all for today. Next week we'll be talking about the implications of global climate change. Thanks for tuning in. Am I starting?
Well, losing them officially,
Because I'm his only child, so my parents invest a lot in my education.